Okay, and so I would like to introduce, well, first of all, everybody, welcome to our November election review. We have Caleb Breaux, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
It's close enough. It's Breaux.
Okay.
No, that's great. Great. That's fine.
Caleb is our Collin County election administrator. You're just finishing your first full year, aren't you?
That's correct. Yeah, it's almost a full year of my first appointment. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, we just finished our first hand-marked ballot election in November. So we'd really like to hear how it went and, if you can just give us a review, and then we're going to open it up to questions. If everyone can kind of raise their hand on the Zoom, and I'll call on you so that we're not inundating Caleb with questions. We are recording this, so and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, and then the link posted on our website for anybody to see. So if you're not comfortable with asking a question and being recorded, then know that we are recording. So, all right, Caleb, take it away.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you all for having me. I tell you, I think I shared this with y'all maybe when I spoke with you before, but going into these constitutional amendment elections, I want you to know how much I rely on the research of your organization as a voter here in Collin County. I love the voters guides you guys do for voters in Collin County. Especially rely on you all during the constitutional amendment elections. I love your summaries. So thank you so much for the work that you do. It's very important to us, to voters across the county, across this nation. So just before I get started, I just want to say a quick thank you and just how much I respect and appreciate the work that you all do in our county for the public. So I'm going to do just a quick overview. Try not to bore you with too many numbers, and really want to leave a lot of opportunity for us to just kind of chat maybe about your experience or the election itself. But so just a real quick rundown. All 252 precincts obviously were eligible to vote in this election. We had 14 jurisdictions that joined us for this election. The state had their amendments. Collin County had the ESD, the Emergency Services District election on the ballot. City of Anna, City of Josephine, City of Lavon, City of Lowry Crossing, Town of Prosper, Town of Weston, all joined us on this election. We had a couple of school districts, including Bland, Princeton, Rockwall, Van Alstine, and then there were two mud creation elections. So Seven Springs Mud and Ticky Creek Mud were the two municipal utility district elections that were on the ballot. So a lot of joining jurisdictions for a constitutional amendment election. For this election, we had 41 early voting locations and 91 election day locations. And that number 91, just talk real quick about it. Anytime, anytime we have something on the agenda in court, we get some questions about things. And one of those things that we heard from some constituents or some concerned citizens in the public, that 91 polling locations seems high for a November odd year election. Senate Bill 985 was passed this last legislative session, was enacted for this election. So being a vote center county, we used to have to follow a formula for elections like November. So we would take our 252 precincts, and because we're a vote center, we would have to divide that number in half, and typically we would have 126. Senate Bill 985 allowed us to consolidate down precincts that have under 3,000 registered active voters. We're able to consolidate and kind of consolidate contiguous precincts to decrease our number of polling locations. So that's how we arrived at 91 election day polling locations for this election. So that creates a lot of workers. We conducted 32 four-hour training sessions for this implementation of this new hand-marked method of voting. We did 2 times a day, 5 and 6 days a week, between 5 and 6 days a week for 3 weeks. I just had someone run the stats for me. We had over 1,400 election workers that worked this election, and so we had that many workers come through. A majority of them were trained for this election. So our training, we are working hard to make it a little more modular, a little more hands-on, a little more friendly. So we'll talk more about that here in a bit. 32 4-hour training sessions to kind of pull this off. At the time of the election, we had 742,000 plus registered voters here in Collin County. And this election, this November 2025 odd year election, there were over 117,000 ballots cast. The approximate number is 117,755 ballots for a 15.87% turnout. And honestly, that turnout shocked us a little bit. Um, Typically, these odd year November elections bring about a turnout of about 7 or 8%. So that percent turnout almost doubled, which I think is a fantastic thing. If you're going to do an election, you kind of do it in hopes that everybody who's registered turns out. But this one really shocked us. And I'm going to kind of go over just some stats. So in 2025, we had a 15.87% turnout. In 2023, we had a 13.92%, so almost 14%. And then in 2021, November, we had a 7.94% turnout. And you see that trend going up for these odd year Novembers. And if you look at legislation that occurred between 2021 and 2023, the state opened up November elections to allow more jurisdictions to hold like joint elections with counties it, as a bit of a cost savings measure. So I think that we'll see that turnout, kind of keep raising, especially as local jurisdictions hold more and more joint elections with us in this odd year November. So I think that's why we're seeing that trend move up away from that, 8% closer to 15, 16%. So um, when you take our 117,755 ballots cast, 1.32% were cast by mail. 48.48% were cast in person during early voting, and then 50.2% were cast on election day in person. And that trend is also a little strange for Collin County. We're a heavy early voting in-person turnout county. Those numbers tend to lean more 30-70 or 70% early, 30% on election day. This election this November was almost a 50-50 split. So that was a bit of a shock, bit of a surprise for us, but that just shows you can never really predict what people are going to do, especially when it comes to voting. So we're seeing some trends a little differently this election than maybe we saw in past elections, especially odd November elections. Just a quick note, our top five early voting polling locations, they're kind of the same players that we see every election here in Collin County. Gay Library had the highest turnout in early voting. Allen Municipal Courts had the second highest turnout. Haggard Library in Plano, Carpenter Park in Plano, and Davis Library in Plano round out the top five um, turnout for polling locations during early voting. And you kind of see that trend also occur on election day. So these locations are also election day polling locations. Gay Library in McKinney, John and Judah Gay Library in McKinney was your top polling location on election day. Allen Municipal Courts in Allen, the Davis Library in Plano, Allen ISD Service Center in Allen was our fourth highest on election day, and then Carpenter Park was our fifth highest on election day. And I know we heard some concerns from voters just about having to wait. Maybe we had a high turnout on election day, and I got to tell you. I think we need to do a better job probably of educating our voters of other polling locations that are around these high turnout locations that are available for voters. Again, you're never going to change someone's mind. If someone, you can never predict things, but we try and offer as many options for our voters. So just a good example. On election day, Gay Library voted 2,153 people. literally across the street. Like I could, and I used to be able to throw a baseball, but could probably still throw a baseball to Evans Middle School, just across the street from John and Judy Gay Library. They voted 447 voters on election day. So we've got to figure out a better way to educate our voters of, hey, we do have some high turnout locations, and if you want to wait in line, that's your prerogative. Please feel free to wait in line. But there are other options, within radius of these high turnout polling locations. So we're thinking about some signage, maybe something like you see at Disney World, where, hey, if you're standing in line and you're at this sign, you have about a 45-minute wait, and if you scan this QR code, we can show you a map of other polling locations in the area with a lower or a less wait time. So.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be awesome because we've heard stories of people who just couldn't wait and left and
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
vote.
yeah.
And
Well, there's
so,
so many, so many other polling locations. It's just teaching our voters that they exist and
right.
giving them options.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're thinking of some creative ways to get that word out. But I guess people just get so used to you have those 2 weeks of early voting. They see all the polling locations, and then on election day you open more. I think it's just making voters aware
Hmm.
of those options.
Yeah.
Um,
And that voting early is always better.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
so. And I promise we don't change your votes between early voting and election day.
Yeah.
I know there's some stories about that floating around, but we don't allow drones to come in and change
Oh,
the
wow.
electronic votes. Yeah, so yeah,
I
that's
haven't
not
heard that one. Yeah.
not true. So after the election, we conducted a new post-election hand count audit. The state changed the name of this. So a lot of people are concerned. How do we know the results? How can we trust the results? So every election, before the election, we conduct tons of testing. We have a public test that we open up to the public, and public are allowed to attend while we kind of go through the gauntlet of tests on all of our equipment. We also conduct a post-election hand count audit. Senate Bill 827 changed this process for counties across the state. So it kind of it broadened the post-election hand count audit and allowed us to count more ballots, or the state is requiring us to count maybe more ballots than we have in the past. So what happens is the state sends us an email and they say, "Hey, we've chosen three contests across three precincts in mail and three early voting locations, and also three election day polling locations." So they tell us basically what contests you're going to count, the precincts from mail that you're going to count, and then early voting and election day locations. So they sent us that. We hand counted over 6,565 ballots during that process. Basically, 19,695 selections, if you will, were counted. That was about a 5.5%, almost 6% of the total ballots cast were also hand counted. This new Senate Bill 827 appoints our ballot board made up of people represented both parties, Republican and Democrat. We even have, I think there's an independent person who serves on our ballot board as well. I want you to know they found zero discrepancies in the 6% of the ballots they hand count or hand counted during that process. Um, they work very diligently to figure out the best way to hand tally. The state gives us a recommended way to do it. Sometimes, we find that things on paper sound good, but when you actually have people trying to count all these contests, they come up with some different ways to do it. But really proud of our ballot board and the job they did. They're more involved in this process now. But yeah, they found zero discrepancies. So just a little, people think that, on Wednesday we show up to work after the election and there's nothing, you must be done. You finally get to go on vacation. But there's so much that goes on in the post-election, and one of those things is a post-election audit. So just happy to present that. We have the results of that audit on our website, so you can kind of see that breakdown as well. But yeah, just thought that was some good news to report. A lot of people don't get to hear about some of these post-election things, but thought it'd be good to share with you all tonight as well. Um, so, um, so definitely happy to talk about some of the issues, that we had and some of the best practices we learned. I look forward to hearing some feedback from y'all as well. Um, but we definitely thought that it was important to deploy this new method of voting in a lower turnout election. So I know a lot of people think that it was rushed. But our staff worked really hard and thought it was really important for us to try all this new stuff out now, to work out the bugs and kinks and things, especially as we're moving into midterm elections with, the governor's gubernatorial election and midterm elections here in the county. So just want you to know we're working with the vendor currently to go over some things that we learned about the ballot printing process. We've already had a meeting with them. The county administrators requested a meeting with some of the higher ups with our printer vendor, who's ES&S. They're also our tabulation vendor. So they flew someone in. We had some conversations with them. So we're already working with them, the state, and two other counties to try and resolve some of the things that we saw occur, in the polling place. So.
And so is this related to the printers were slow? Because that was one complaint that we heard, that the lines were long because the printers were so slow, or one of the printers broke. And then, there was a time when there was only one printer and
Well, every polling location had two printers. So we learned through training or through talk like debriefing with a group of judges. I don't know that every polling location was using every resource available to them within the
yeah,
polling
not,
place, and I
yeah.
think that just may have been a thing that we need to clean up in training. I would like to talk about the print time though, so that since you brought it up. So when I talk to my colleagues in Denton County, they use a different vendor, similar style of voting. The 35-second time to print a full face ballot did not seem absurd to them. Like that seemed like we're in the ballpark. I think if we think about when the printing occurs, maybe why we hear some frustration from voters. And let me explain. So, no matter what we do, either a ballot marking device or voting on a full face optical scan ballot, there was a time to print the ballot for the voter. Okay. When we were using, or we still technically use the ballot marking device, that time to print was kind of in the middle of the process. The voter would make their selections on the screen, and then they would hit print ballot. And that ballot marking device, there, it may not have been on a clock on anybody's radar, but it was printing a ballot.
Yeah.
For this election, we ran a test. We took the longest ballot that we had with the most choices on that ballot, and it was constitutional amendments in the city of Anna. They had 24, 26 charter amendments on their ballot, so
Wow.
quite a long ballot. To print that on the old express vote card, it took 22 seconds for the express vote after you made all the selections. It took 22 seconds for the express vote to, once you hit print ballot, to spit out that ballot card. The shortest ballot, which would just be the constitutional amendments, took 19 seconds to print. So if you look at that, and then you look at on the front end now, we've moved the printing process to the front end at the check-in process. We're not too terribly far off
Mm.
from those print times. So it takes 35 seconds, or it took 35 seconds for our ballot marking to our BOD printers to print the 19-inch full face optical scan ballot. So I think if you kind of shift perception and say, hey, it seems like a long time because the printing is done before you actually receive your
And you're
ballot.
waiting in line. So everyone's
Yes,
waiting in line looking at the things print and they're
that's
like, oh
correct.
my God, this is taking so long. So
That's
because
correct.
you've changed where it prints in the process, it seems like it's a bottleneck.
It does. It does. And yeah, so we are working with a vendor to see if we can cut into any of that time, any of that 35 seconds. So we're talking about the way their software interacts, on the back end. Do the printers need more memory? Just memory on board the printer to start that process a little bit quicker. So these are all conversations that we're having with the vendor now to try and resolve to even cut into, because if we can eliminate 4 or 5 seconds, we that it's 4 or 5 seconds, 742,000 times that adds up over time.
Yeah.
So
I voted at Carpenter in early voting, and they were only using one printer. So
yeah,
that might
so
be a training issue.
no, definitely is. So when we talked to the vendor, you had talked about some of the printers going down. We experienced some where the printer would start overheating a little bit.
Oh,
That heating element is just used over and over and over again. Well, the vendor, the first thing they ask is, how are you load balancing the work on that printer? Well, ideally, you would want, if I've given you 4 printers in your polling place, I would like for you to use more than one. We'd like for you to kind of to scatter all of your print jobs out across all of those. So load balance is one of the things that we're going to talk about as we move down the road in training, and just making sure that your printers are getting worked evenly, and not so you're not putting so much of a load on one of those within the polling place.
yeah.
So that is one of the things that debriefing with the vendor, that was the first thing they asked was, or the first two things is, what was your environment like, on or around election day, and then how were you load balancing those print jobs across all the printers? So definitely a takeaway in training that we want to address moving forward. Um,
Okay.
I'm really proud of my staff. Just we, worked really hard, and I'll end here and then just kind of be happy to just kind of go back and forth with y'all. But really proud of my staff,
Yeah,
and
they
not
really
only
pulled off something amazing there in a
it
very
really
short period.
did.
Yeah, yeah,
Really did.
yeah,
And then also just other departments around the county, super thankful for all the hands involved, the support, we got from the court as well on getting this process implemented. They voted for it, and then they also followed through by kind of moving heaven and earth to get this implemented here within our county. Our staff, we've gotten everyone, all the 1,400 poll workers entered, their time entered, and everyone's been paid. I think there are a few people who haven't been paid for this election because they're missing paperwork or something. But a lot of people don't realize I have a full-time staff of 17 people. We're HR, we do payroll, we implement elections, we're ballot printers, we're ballot printer fixers. So I have a small staff that does it all. So just super proud of everyone stepping up, and I really do feel like we accomplished a lot, and I don't want that to be overlooked. With the
yeah.
issues we did have, really proud of
Well,
everyone
I mean,
who.
I think that we knew there was going to be some issues, and they were not
Absolutely.
catastrophic. So I think that that's the good news, right? That you guys got it
Yes.
done. Yeah, yeah,
So, and just, if we look at too, just a couple of other figures, and I have a couple of things pulled up. I was super concerned about spoiled ballot rates. So when we look back historically, look at voters using ballot marking devices since 2019, we had about a 1% spoiled ballot rate. So that's a voter realizing that they made a mistake on their ballot, they surrender that ballot, and they're issued a new one. So using ballot marking devices, that was about 1% historically. I knew there was going to be an uptick.
So we have chicken,
And I think that
lemon pepper chicken, and then we have
looking at where we are, that the spoilage rate for voter mismarked ballots ended up being about 4.5%. Now we did have some misprinted ballots, and we had some environmental issues and things that we're working on the vendor with just ballots being misprinted. But when you look at voter spoilage rate, it went up about 3.5%. Voters just mismarking a ballot and get, even before they got to the DS-200, getting to the DS-200, allowing it to adjudicate their ballot, and the ballot would be kicked out. We saw about a 4.5% spoiled ballot rate for voter error, if you will. So hopefully, with just voter education, as people get more and more used to the system, hopefully we see that trend decrease.
yeah.
Is what we would like to see for sure. And then one final number I want to give y'all, and then I will just kind of take your questions. Really proud of the ballot board. Again, can't speak enough on the job they do. We let me make sure I say this right. We issued. I'm looking for my mail. We issued 2,005 mail ballots throughout this process. And of those, we counted 15, I'm sorry, 1570 were returned. Of those returned, only eight of them were rejected. That's a trend. Our ballot board, every election, they get better and better about really going above and beyond to make sure that if a mail ballot, a ballot by mail voter's ballot should count, and maybe there's a deficiency on it, a missing signature or an ID piece that's missing. Our ballot board is really stepping up, contacting those voters and making sure they're going through the corrective action process. So we see that number of mail ballots or the percentage of mail ballots being rejected every election going down. And that just speaks to the work that our ballot board does to make sure that they're going above and beyond to reach out to our voters to make sure their ballots are counted with regarding any deficiencies or whatever. So just really proud of the work that's being done here by several groups, ballot board included. So with that, I'll just want to hear from you. Happy to
Okay.
answer questions and just kind of chat back and forth. Or if there's a stat that I missed that you want to hear, I can see about digging it up. And
Well, there's a stat that I'm not sure if you have, but I would really like to know how many um, voters that we have that are not registered but eligible to vote in Collin County. I'm not sure if you have that, because that's basically our opportunity to register people, right? Is how many are we trying to register? So,
so just how many people, like the population and how many are
mhm,
not registered?
yeah,
So I was listening to Commissioner's Court on yesterday. I believe someone mentioned they're doing a bunch of road surveys and the expansion of the outer loop. The last figure that they received, we're at 1.3 million in population here in the county. And of that, I believe we had a bit of a little drop off after the election. I want to say we're right at 740,000, excuse me,
yeah.
740,000 registered. So
Well, the 1.3 million does not mean they're eligible to vote. They could be
correct.
non-citizens or red. So, you know, the number that we're really trying to get to is how many of the 1.3 are citizens that are eligible to vote but not registered. So
Yeah,
for
that
us, that's
I
our
don't have.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
What we do have, the first question they have is Jen asked if there was a possibility that we could have live wait times, like a website we could go to and say, what is the wait time at Carpenter or wherever right now on election day? So
Yeah, we actually have that. If you look at, I'll tell you what, I
I
think the
think,
website's still up.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I have it in the chat, Caleb.
Do
Just
you?
make sure
Okay,
you
great. That's what I was gonna drop it in the chat. But we do. So we have a wait time map. So our live polling location map on election day and during early voting. Each polling location is identified with a colored marker. Those that are green, there's little to no wait. Those that turn yellow, I think yellow is a 30-minute wait. And when the polling location turns red, I think it's 45 minutes to an hour wait. So we would just point voters to that website and just kind of monitor there. And you can kind of plan before you go to the poll. And thank you, whoever shared that in the chat. We update that with new polling locations every election. So we would point voters to that and say, plan accordingly.
Well, that's good. We can, next year for the primaries and the midterms, we can kind of advertise that on our social media. So when we ask people to
Absolutely.
make a plan, so that's one of the things they need to know about.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask Caleb? Virginia, why don't you go ahead and ask him?
Okay. Um, I worked in Frisco, at the Frisco Fire Station 8. And first of all, I want to thank your team. I know from, late June to early voting in October is a lot, is a very short window to turn around stuff and figure out the training. And I think y'all did a fabulous job with that. I mean, we all knew we were going to have some hiccups, of course. And
Sure,
e-
sure.
even in training, y'all said the printer is going to be the thing that holds you up. Um, but anyway, one other interesting thing that we saw, and I heard from other friends who worked at other locations as well, we had a few voters, new voters who had registered in time, at least that's what they told us, and they weren't in our, poll list, our Collin County poll list. And when we call, the Secretary of State hadn't yet done whatever they had to do to process it. In some instances, I had a couple people who uh, your team advised us to tell the voter to come back on election day, and they still weren't in the poll book. So, can you just speak to that? Like, kind of what?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And actually, we had a chat about that this morning. We have a couple of voters. We have about 2,000 voters currently that are still in a pending state verification status. A few of them, I asked my voter registration coordinator to check. A few of them have been in PSV since July, and yeah, it's unacceptable. And I think what we're seeing in Virginia is. The state implementing this new Team 2.0 system. It's a new vendor that they're using. So we are, and I want you to know, we're not the only county who's experiencing this. We're an offline county. And when I say offline, we use a vendor's software to do all of our database maintenance for voter registration. So the processing of applications, any notices and things that have to go out, the printing of your cards, all that's done through a third-party vendor. We use VR Systems is the vendor that we selected after we moved away from Votech. So we'll enter data in our system here locally. All of our data is housed on servers locally. They're not in the cloud. They're in-house here on-prem in Collin County. So at the end of the day, we send a file up to the state. The state takes those voters, verifies them, runs them through all their checks and cross-state checks through DPS and different agencies. And then they'll send us an import back that says, hey, all these voters that are in some sort of pending status, you can now flag them or it'll change their status from PSV to active. What we're seeing right now is the state is implementing this new Team 2.0 is that some of the data is not communicating or playing well together. Our vendor is working directly with the state. We're working with both the vendor and the state to try and bridge the gap to figure out what we have to do to get these 2,000 that are still lingering out there into active status. We've even told the state that, hey, look, we can either enter them manually on your site, so going out of our software and fixing it on the state side. And they want us to hold off because they're trying to resolve it. And we have a little bit of time before the next election. So we're either going to do that, go onto the state site and enter them manually, or what we'll do is we're finding that if you re-enter them, like delete their record and re-enter them, that seems to be clearing it as well. It's a lot of work to do that. We're hoping that the state and our vendor will come to a solution before that, but we've already told the state and our vendor we're willing to do whatever we have to do to get everyone to show up. And I want you to know we did see an increase, probably higher than normal, a number of provisional ballots, and a lot of those were these voters. And I want you to know that those ballots counted. If we saw no
Okay.
blemish or deficiency, our voter registration team and our ballot board worked together to make sure that if there was nothing we saw wrong with their record, then we were going to make sure those ballots counted, and we did that. I think you can see that in our records, that both the ballot board and our voter registration team worked hard to make sure that happened.
Good, good.
Yeah, we're not, I want you to know, Virginia, we are not happy about that situation at all. So we really hope the state and our vendor get it cleared up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear because I mean, when anytime you vote somebody provisionally, you always hope that it's going to
Mhm.
count, and we try and write as much information like they registered in time, they did all the right things, to hope that it will count. I'm glad to hear that. Do you happen to know percentage wise what counted?
Yeah, hang on, I have that pulled up. If I look like I'm reading, it's so um, we had. Let me find that stat here. We counted. There were 392 provisional ballots submitted. We rejected 192 and counted 200 of those. And of those that were rejected, there were only two that were deemed incomplete. So, like either the voter left off a signature, I believe, are the two that were incomplete. The voter didn't complete their process in signing that affidavit. Um, and then I have some numbers. Let me see if I can find the numbers real quick. Just a breakdown of like why they were rejected. Normally, the ones that are rejected, a majority of them, they weren't registered at the time at all. So it's not that they were in PSV; they just were flat not registered to vote. Um, we have some tracking spreadsheets here. Sorry
So
for the
with
delay.
with a rejected provisional ballot, do you notify them that their ballot was not
Yes, yeah, they're
okay?
seen a notice. So either if it's counted, we send them a notice in the post-election, or if it's rejected, they're notified in the post-election process.
An opportunity for us to go register people. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so a lot of them, just kind of looking through, it looks like of the ones we rejected for early voting, 105 of them just they were not on the list, so just not registered at all,
Yeah, but
uh,
how
or
could they even get
or
a
registered in
ballot?
time.
Joan, did you have a question? Oh,
And then on election day, um, of the 167, I'm not quite sure. The spreadsheet's a little bit different for election day,
Okay.
but
And then how many, I know we sent some to do the limited ballot at
yeah,
the office. Do you know how many got processed that way?
yeah, I think I do. Hang on just one second. Sorry, I should have had all this
No, that's
in
okay.
front of me. Uh, we've started. So the state asked that we do kind of less granular to protect voters' privacy and their privacy to a private ballot or their right to a private ballot. So we used to put limited ballots as its own thing, its own category with our results, but we started putting it in early voting to because if you have a fewer number of limited ballot voters, you don't want that number kind of out there, especially if you have like 10 limited ballot voters. It's easier to maybe figure out how someone voted. So we started burying that number in our early voting statistics, but I think I have a roster here that'll tell me how many limited ballots we had. Sorry, I should have had that breakout for y'all.
Just for everybody else, a limited ballot is where if you were registered in one county in Texas, and you moved to Collin County but didn't get registered in Collin County, then you can go to the Collin County Elections Office and vote the things that are in common. So in this case, all of the amendments were, they would be in common because they're
Yeah,
the
across the
same.
state. That's
Yeah.
absolutely correct. All the amendments for sure. I'm sorry. We have all
No,
these
that's okay.
folders. I'm clicking through as fast as I can
If
to
you can't
find
find
them.
it, that's all right. I was just
Yeah, I
curious.
may have to get back to you. I know. I believe it was fewer than 100 this election. These lower turnout elections, we don't have as quite as many as we do for like what we'll see during the primary election and also in November. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't
Yeah,
find the
that's okay.
spreadsheet. I
yeah.
apologize about
No
that.
So
problem.
a next question that we have is Connie's asking about the DS 200. Is it up to the task of consistently and accurate reading the ballots? And is there a possibility that we change printers? We're going to buy more printers for the higher turnout elections. Seems like two is not going to be enough from,
Yeah, well, so in our higher turnout locations, definitely the top five locations, and actually several of our early voting locations, I'd say almost in all of our early voting locations, we put at least four printers in those higher turnout locations.
oh,
So
wow.
so I think once we start load balancing, and there are a couple little environmental issues and ballot handling things that we're working with the vendor. As a matter of fact, if you come and are working during the special election we have January 31st, you're going to see there are a couple of things that we're doing to make sure that the ballots stay not acclimated to the environment they're in. So moisture and those types of things. So we bought a few things to try and eliminate that. We're installing some fans to eliminate the heat and humidity within the print booth or the print cabinet. So we're implementing some things now to try and resolve that. But I really think we're going to take a hard look at load balancing for the special election to see if we're able to cut down on some of the misprints. As far as the DS200s, I absolutely believe our DS200s are up to the task of tabulating a ballot. And I think our hand count, post-election hand count audit proves that.
Yeah.
We counted or hand counted 6% of our ballots, and there were no discrepancies of what the digital scanners reported and then what we actually hand tabulated. So I definitely think our tabulation equipment is up to the task of counting a ballot properly, and actually giving the voter the opportunity to adjudicate when there's something wrong with it as well. So definitely trust our DS200s. And we're working to resolve the few issues we had with the ballot printers as well.
So did you have anybody talk about the lighting and how the font on the ballot was not large, and
Hmm.
in some cases where the lighting was low, if it was a cloudy day or whatever, they really struggled to read the ballot. And I don't think people recognized that they could have used the express machines, right? It wasn't, you had to really be insistent that you wanted to use that. So someone who needs a light to read, like many of us as we get older, would not have thought, oh, I need to go over and use the machine because I can barely read the ballot. So I don't know if you had a lot of input regarding those type of issues.
Yeah, well, and that's so I told you we are working with the state. So us, Collin County, Williamson County, and Bastrop County, those three counties deployed this method of voting for this election. All use the same print vendor, and so we are working with the state, and this kind of multi-level to answer your question, Liz. We're working with the state on a couple of things. One of the things and you're 100% correct. One of the things that is a bit of a limitation for us three counties that I just mentioned. So we've gone from primarily voting on a machine, a ballot marking device, where you had unlimited real estate, right?
Right.
So you were not confined to an 8.5 by 19-inch sheet of paper. You had multiple screens that you could use. You click next and go to the next screen. That machine also allowed you to use color contrast. It would allow you to increase font size. So we've gone from primarily voting on a machine that allowed for all these things to now we're limited on the real estate we have that's defined by a sheet of paper. So the state has a couple of laws on the books and in code. One of the pieces of code that that are in question is that every ballot has to bear a serial number. Okay. I was hoping that I could keep the font size larger. And if we had to print on multiple sheets of paper, that us in Collin County, we were going to be able to pull that off. I found out late in the process that the state was not going to allow me to do that because the sheets of paper we print on, we get them pre-numbered. So the state
Uh,
came back, someone from legal at the state came back, and this was very late in the process, like midstream, where we
oh,
had to make a kind of deviate from what we were going to do. The state came back and basically said, "Hey, your ballots, a ballot issued to a voter cannot contain more than one serial number. So I want to print only on 14-inch pieces of paper, just because a couple of reasons. That's what the printers are natively created to print on. Um, and secondly, I can I can make font size larger if I'm not restricted by the real estate, right? So the state midstream made me change. That's why we went to this 19-inch sheet of paper, which I hate. I never want to print on paper that large again. But we're really working with the state to come up, and the state and the vendor to come up with a creative way to stay within the confines of a 14-inch ballot, make my font size larger, and have the ability to print on multiple sheets. So a voter would be issued multiple sheets, but increasing the integrity or the font size to make it easier to read is important. The lighting issue is definitely something we're battling. I think there's conversations being had where we would install or give each polling location a number of like book lights or something to click
Yeah.
on to that, kind of retrofit some lighting situations for some of our lower or not optimal visibility polling locations. And again, a point you made too, and I'll hit on this and then take the next question. There is no litmus test or no performance test that any voter would have to take to qualify to vote on the express vote. It's just the voter needs to be aware to ask for it. Uh,
That's the key, is they
yes,
need to be aware.
that is
So
100%.
yeah.
Uh,
And I don't think there was a lot of training done on that because I personally went in and used the machine. I went in early voting on the first day and they had no idea how to use it. I was the first one and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. And
well, I can
the election
definitely, I
judge
can.
had to call in and they
It,
didn't.
it, it was
Yeah.
mentioned 32 times. I
Well,
promise you
yeah.
that in
So
the training.
I don't know if everybody's required to go to training but they had no idea how to do it. They had to call into the helpline. So it took
Okay.
me about 45 minutes to vote that day. Um, so, but yes, I think there needs to be an advertisement or there needs to be communication that if you're not comfortable with this, you are eligible to do the express, voting machine. Um, so Laura, do you want to ask your question in person? Up, you're not. I see you trying to come off mute. Let me see if I
There
can.
I am.
There you go. There you
There.
go.
Yeah. So, Caleb, you had mentioned, that the ballot spoiler rate had increased from 1% to 4.5%, which seems like a big jump and could be very impactful next year because we'll have a lot more people voting. And so when you were thinking about educating voters, I would just be curious, like, how would we do that? And how could the league help with that?
Hmm.
Because it just seems to me that could be a challenge next year.
Yeah, so a lot of the spoiled ballots we saw is a voter changing their mind about maybe one of the amendments they voted on. We saw a lot of that. We saw, yeah, honestly, saw as we were reviewing like spoiled ballots and looking like kind of diving into some of these numbers, I expected to see a lot more overvotes, but it was a lot of like voter change their mind and honestly a lot of just mismarking. So like not completely filling in an oval, the machine would the DS200 would kick that ballot out to the
Uh,
voter. The voter would be reissued a new ballot to try again. I think there are a couple of things. I think this 35 seconds that seems to be on everyone's radar. And this is something I took this as a best practice for our poll workers. This 35 seconds where we have the voter right there in front of us waiting on their ballot to be printed is a great opportunity for us to educate the voter on what they're going to see when they go to the voting booth. So shame on us for not, effectively using that 35-second wait time. Um, So I think that's an opportunity for us to spread that message on how to correctly mark a ballot. Um, I think just the for the voter, the understanding what completely filling in the oval looks like, that we're not using checks or X's or circling a name.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, I think educating the voter on that bubbling in the oval is how we're voting currently in Collin County. That's a second thing. And honestly, I hate to throw a lot of the blame, but there's a lot of stuff to read on the ballot for this election. So to deploy this method of voting, our first used to be in a constitutional amendment, probably wasn't fair. Though I think it was right, it probably wasn't fair. I think, as we move into midterm elections and as voters are really studying these candidates, they're going to show up probably being a little more educated on or knowing who they're going to vote for. I think that will cut down on some confusion. So just, telling our voters to show up, ready to vote, come with a sample ballot. A lot of people show up with a sample ballot pre-marked. Hopefully they're reading your
Mhm.
materials that you're putting out and
Mhm.
pre-marking their ballot. Um, so I think that those are three opportunities for us to better educate our voters on just being prepared going into the polling place.
Yeah.
That sounds good. And just for my education, is express vote the old electronic way? Liz, you said you voted express vote. Is
The
that
Yeah.
express,
using
yes, ma'am. The
That's
express
the
vote is the
machines.
ballot marking device. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, to the group, so Collin County, we moved to this hand marked paper ballot because we thought that the EAC, who gives us federal guidance on elections, we thought that this was the way that we were going to see them move, right? So we kind of got first in line just in case that's what they did. And honestly, as we watched what the EAC was doing in their hearings. Post us moving to this, I really think that we're going to see a new generation of voting equipment here in the county. So, though this is our current method of voting, I would not be surprised within the next 5 6 years that we're adopting a new method here within the county as the EAC releases their new guidance on voting, as we see some technology change within the voting realm. So, though I know a lot of people aren't happy with where we are now, don't get too comfortable with it because I think probably in the next 5 or 6 years we see that change. And I think Bruce, before he retired, that was his message. He thought we were at about half life of this equipment. So that's just kind of what we're seeing play out now.
Well, it's a great, Janice, do you want to ask your question now? It's kind of the next.
Sure. Well, my question has to do with now that we are uh, using hand marked ballots, will the next thing be hand counting all of them, not just for the audit, but all of them? Are you hearing anything about that, Caleb?
No, ma'am. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be very transparent with this group. That is definitely something I was concerned that we were going to hear more of moving into this primary election. I want you to know, I say this kind of jokingly, but had that resignation letter ready to go if that's the method we were going to adopt here. Did not want to stick around for that. I have 16 other people in my office who did not want to stick around and see that, but no, though we see some of our neighbors to the south adopting that hand count method for this primary election, I got to tell you, I'm really proud of what I'm hearing from both parties in this election. Really happy. We actually are meeting with them tomorrow to kind of iron out a few more of the details, but really believe we're on track that you all are going to see. This primary is going to be very similar to primaries that you all seen in the past. So really confident that that's the direction we're headed. And honestly, I believe, Janice, that the next iteration of election equipment, instead of using a barcode to tabulate, I think we're moving towards, and it's kind of older technology now, but it's the newest election technology. I think we're going to move to something more like optical character recognition, where
Mhm.
it's reading the actual name that's printed on the ballot or something of that nature. So relying less on a grid pattern and more on what's appearing. That seems to be the direction. If you look at guidance from the EAC and the voting guidelines, that seems to be the direction that technology's headed
So
now.
if we went to that optical character recognition, then we wouldn't need a barcode, and we could go back to the ballot marking machines and away from hand counting. Well, that would be,
Absolutely. I think that's spot on, Liz. I think that's
yeah,
100% accurate. Yeah.
yeah,
There's no tricking that. What is showing up on your ballot is what
yeah,
is being counted. That's
yeah.
it.
Well, let's hope we get to that. And I assume that the vendor has those machines and is working towards, or you're just waiting for the EAC to come out with their latest recommendations.
Yes, ma'am. It'll be so they use VVSG as it's like a voting system guideline.
Yep.
We're currently under 2.0 standards. What they're working towards is this 2.1 standard, going off of the executive order we saw in March. They're using that executive order to kind of guide them to this VVSG 2.1 standard. It's just not fully adopted yet. I can tell you that one vendor that is certified here in the state already has their next iteration of equipment that has been certified federally, is this OCR technology, and the vendor that we use is that's in their pipe now as well. So I believe that's definitely the direction we're headed.
So is there anything that we as a league can do to help you and your staff, especially, we anticipate that 26 is going to be let's say an interesting year, right? We are going to be focused on registering a lot of voters and then trying to get out the vote for both the primaries and the midterm elections. And is there anything we can do partnering with you or your team to help in educating voters, or you know anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I just Virginia. It's a great point. I got to tell y'all, I am, and I've told both parties this. I'd say it in public, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
this on this call. I am super concerned that with the number of polling locations that we have, that we're going to have, and it's lesser than we've had in previous elections, but the number of polling locations that we have for this upcoming primary election and then subsequent election in November, I'm concerned that we don't have enough qualified bodies to work the polls for us. That is a concern I've shared with both parties. So I
So
think
you need poll workers.
poll workers, absolutely. I
Okay.
think I want you to know that I'm committed to being creative with the way we staff polling locations.
Hmm.
And today's generation and the people that we have available to work the poll, we understand that not everybody has a 14 or 16-hour day that they can give, but there's some people that have 2 hours and 4 hours that they can give every other day. I realize that we probably have to get creative, and we have to convince our current judges to get creative with the way that we staff our polling locations. So that's a big thing. And yes, Virginia, poll workers are paid. We just got you guys a pay increase and stipends and all these things. So recruiting poll workers is huge. I want
Okay.
you
Well, I mean,
to,
we can advertise that on our social media to recruit poll workers, and I'll get with Virginia and Connie and find out what the pay is and how someone would apply for that, so that we can advertise that for the March primaries. Absolutely.
yeah,
So,
that's a huge concern. And the next thing is we want to be a resource for you all. So we're finding, and again, I'd take kind of a lead from you all. We're finding a great success with these like online VDR trainings that we're conducting.
hmm.
We saw a lower turnout of in person, so we kind of shifted our direction to these online kind of after hours. I want you to know that I have staff that are willing to, if you guys have any VDR sessions that you want, that you have a pool of people that you're wanting to get signed up to be a VDR. We're happy to conduct those. Lauren, my voter registration coordinator, and her team, they do a fantastic job of training and getting those materials out to y'all. So I want you to know we want to be a resource for you all as well,
Okay.
especially as you're registering people to vote. And y'all do a fine job with that. And so
And we
that's
actually advertised the December online training in our newsletter this month. So,
great.
and we're trying to educate all our members that if they want to be VDR, here's the easiest way to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, just we want to continue to be a resource for you there. So, if you feel like we need to go a different direction with something, you let us know. We'll
Yeah.
accommodate, however.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions?
I have just one last one since I've got Caleb's attention. So you mentioned this Senate bill that 985 that allowed you to consolidate precincts, and so you consolidated precincts. Will you do that again next year? I mean, like, is it a requirement, or is it up to Collin County, your office, if you go back to more polling locations?
No, I again, just with my concern about having enough qualified bodies to work the polling locations, I want to keep that number to a, a minimum. And I say a minimum. I want to establish polling locations so that we're meeting the requirements of law, and that's having a polling location for voters within the radius that's outlined in code, and I think it's within 7 miles or 25 miles of one another, and you have to have so many in certain commissioners' precincts, and so we want to continue to satisfy the law, but we want to have quality people conducting quality elections. Quality, when I say quality, verifiable, consistent, valid elections that I have poll workers and judges that are following election code and following our lead. They're accountable for their polling place. Their paperwork is not flawless because we all make mistakes, but there's a clear audit trail of all the steps that were taken in their polling places. So sometimes when you get to a higher number of polling places,
Mm-hmm.
you may lose some of that quality because you have a lot of first time poll workers or first time judges. So I want to strategically position these polling places throughout our county and allow everyone to vote without having to wait in long lines.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely think we're going to take a look at the new number of precincts we have and reduce down as much as we can, and then from there strategically place those polling locations in and around the county to provide a place for voters to vote and have a good experience when they go vote. Because
Yeah.
somebody was telling me today that they heard of they read on Facebook or something that there were some experiences that weren't quite positive at a few of our polling locations, and I just wonder, better training, better crowd management, some of the things that we've been talking about tonight, that probably would have gone a long way. So I definitely want to take a look at, reducing down
Mm-hmm.
as best we can.
That makes sense.
Are you already recruiting poll workers for March?
Yes, ma'am. Well, so for March, we get recommendations from the parties. So the parties will appoint judges and alternate judges, and then from there, we'll they're in charge of getting their own clerk. So yeah, we've already put the word out. So hopefully you're hearing from your parties that they need workers.
Okay, and Jen has a question. Jen, do
Yeah.
you want to come
Yes.
off? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Caleb.
Hey.
So this was my first election to work as a clerk, and I worked at two different locations. I worked in Farmersville and one in Branch. And I won't get too personal, but the one in Farmersville is the location where I personally vote and have for 30 years. As a new clerk, I was very aware of some of the things that were happening behind the table. And I actually had to ask another clerk to take her Bible off the table 3 times. She left it open in front of the voters as they were coming and scanning their driver's license. And there were Bible hymns being sung. There was talk of church among the clerks. I'm not sure as a new clerk how to address that. This is nothing new at that location. So can you advise me on that? Because I didn't want to, uh, I wasn't sure what my rights were as a first time clerk, but to me, that seems blatantly against the rules.
Yeah, well, so we want to we want to make the environment as comfortable for the voter as we can. So if there's anything going on in a polling place that's immediately alienating a voter or making someone feel uncomfortable, that we always tell people we're there for the voter, to give the voter the best experience to get in and out of that polling location to cast their ballot as efficiently and effectively as they can. So yeah, I think if there's anything being done to distract or take away from our focus, and our focus should be on the voter and conducting the successful election, I definitely think there are grounds to have a discussion. And I know during early voting, and I don't know if you worked early voting. I'm sure if you worked CC Farmersville, that's an early voting and election day. Though we don't have a technical judge for early voting, there is someone there who's kind of an appointed leader. So pulling them aside and having them a conversation with them to remind them, hey, and that's something that you let us know. We talk to judges all the time. So if it's an experience that you're having that's making you feel uncomfortable, call and ask for me. I'll be happy to call that judge and just remind that judge, hey, we need to remember what we're there for. It's for the voter to give them a positive experience within that polling place. I definitely don't mind having those conversations with our judges if you're uncomfortable doing so. So just please know that both election workers and public, my door is open. When we're not busy, I'm happy to take calls, but especially from our workers, we want to hear from you. So if there's something going on in your polling place that you think is a distraction to our voters, I definitely want that cleaned up
Thank
as much
you.
as possible. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we call judges all the time and have to remind them about certain things. So happy to have those conversations. That's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, and Caleb, we're here to help if you need anything, and we will be advertising the live, your red, yellow, green on election day, and as well
Great.
as help to recruit poll workers. And Virginia, you have one last question?
Yeah.
Yes. Um, so for the primary elections, people who consider themselves independent, not aligned with either of the major parties, what's their best approach to becoming a poll worker? Would they just choose the party they feel most closely associated with, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question, Virginia. And I got to tell you, and even in my short time here, so I've worked in elections since '06 in Southeast Texas. I started in Jefferson County, which is Beaumont. Kind of cut my teeth there. As we've gotten to where we are now, I've seen the parties become more involved in vetting their workers. So we're actually seeing both parties, people who want to be a judge or an alternate judge, what they're doing is looking at voting history, and they're kind of making a decision. So there's some filtering and vetting going on behind the scenes. Virginia, it may be harder to go in as a leadership role, especially if you identify more of an independent voter in the county, because they will they're requesting voter lists from us and looking at history and things. I would say it's probably easier to get on as a clerk if that is the case, if you don't lean one party over another. And then from there, it just kind of it becomes very organic, and the way that if you do a good job, you're asked back over and over and over again. So I just can't give that, I guess. These primary elections are a little out of our control, in that we're going to receive a list of appointed judges from the party. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting that list. That list is approved through I think through the court we submit that list up, they approve that list. So I can tell you these leadership roles, those workers are vetted a little bit strongly, more strictly than a clerk role, if you will. But yes, I think as a clerk, it would be just, what party would you identify with? Maybe reach out to our local party officials and just tell them that you're happy to be in the pool of clerks. Maybe give them a couple polling cities that you wouldn't mind working in. That's super helpful. And hey, also in our office, Allison Hall, who I think Virginia, Allie, Allison Hall is my polling location poll worker coordinator here. She's also keeping up with a poll, so we're anyone who shows interest, we're passing them along to the party for the party to do their vetting as well. But feel free to send people to our office too, and we'll pass their information along as well.
All right. Well, Kaleb, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It was very, very helpful and informative, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
You got it. Hey, thank you again for having me. I really do appreciate again what you do is not easy. What we do as a community is not easy. Really want you to know how much I appreciate all that you all do there with the league. So thank you so much for everything. If there's anything I can do to help you all in the future, you let me know, okay?
All right. Thanks, Kaleb.
Yes, me.
Have a nice night, everyone.
You
Thanks.
too. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.